So we are going to start with a new topic or rather a new chapter. So basically what happens is in CBSE we have the respiration and circulation part in human physiology as different. But in many boards we have the respiration and circulation part as a combined chapter. And in some boards we have it in the 12th standard, in some we have in the 11th standard. So by and large what means here is if you have studied respiration, then obviously in the same standard you will have to study circulation as well. Okay, so in circulation what we are going to study is how the blood vessels, like say arteries, veins and capillaries are involved in the distribution or exchange of various gases which are required by various cells and tissues like oxygen and the nutrients that are required, and how the waste disposal happens. So in different organisms this transport happens differently. Circulation basically means transport. So this is basically transport of gases, transport of absorbed materials from nutrients and food, and of course transport of waste as well. Okay, so in different animals this entire process happens in a pretty different way. If you remember, in plants we have the xylem and the phloem tissues as the ones which are involved in the transport. So we call them as vascular bundles. The same name is given to the transport system here as well. We will also call them as vascular bundles. So we will quickly start with the chapter. We'll go through all the modules. My request is to please pay attention, and of course attention is something which gets gets a little here and there, but we can always pause or go back and but every slide out here or every video that we are going to upload here would be important. So a miss or basically skipping one video and going on to the other is not going to benefit you. So my suggestion is please go through all the videos, watch them at length, and if you have any questions, queries or clarifications are required, any confusions, please feel free to post your comments in the comment section. So we'll quickly start with the chapter. Body fluids, or this chapter is basically known by different names. So I just put across body fluids or circulation in animals. So body fluids means the fluids which are involved in their transport. So body fluids, what is basically the purpose of all types of body fluids? Different animals, it's not necessarily only the blood which is acting as a body fluid. There can be other fluids as well. So body fluids, what would be the purpose of the body fluids? The body fluid, the purpose is to circulate either respiratory gases or nutrients. So either respiratory gases or nutrients. The purpose of body fluids is to transport these two. Okay. Now, what are the types of circulation? So we will divide the types of circulation in a lot of aspects depending upon the criteria for classification. So here the criteria for classification is basically what cellular level is it happening. Okay, whether it is happening inside the cell or outside the cell. So here we have intracellular circulation. So what do we actually mean by intracellular circulation? In lower unicellular animals, let's say amoeba or paramecium, what happens is the cytoplasm is responsible for the distribution of gases and nutrients. So the cytoplasm is basically playing the part of blood or lymph, whatever. Okay, so they do not have blood. Okay, lower unicellular animals, which means that they are made up of just one cell and their structure is pretty lower. They do not have a very complex structure. Okay, so lower unicellular animals, the cytoplasm basically plays the part of body fluid. Cytoplasm is responsible for distribution of gases and nutrients. So all types of gases and nutrients are basically distributed by the cytoplasm. So we have amoeba, paramecium, etc. And this type of circulation is known as cytoplasmic circulation. It comes under the head of intracellular circulation. So intracellular circulation means the circulation which happens within the cell itself. So basically the cytoplasm itself is acting as the body fluid here in case of lower animals or other unicellular animals. Now we talk about extracellular animals. Okay, what do we mean by extracellular? Obviously it will be the opposite of this. So circulation between the cells as seen in higher animals. So this is basically higher animals, multicellular animals, and where there is a proper diversification of all the jobs that are required. So the blood basically flows into the capillaries. Here the blood flows into arteries, from arteries it moves on to the capillaries, and here the exchange of nutrients and gases happens. So there is a separate fluid, that is blood, which is carrying the gases, that is oxygen, and it is also carrying the nutrients as well. So that's how the exchange takes place. So it's not intracellular, it is extracellular. It happens outside the cell. There is no involvement of cytoplasm here. Here, primarily the cytoplasm is involved. So this is one type of classification of circulation. The other type of classification for circulation is what type of fluid is basically taking part. What type of fluid is taking part in this kind of transport? So one, we have environmental fluid. So the circulation basically happens due to normal. Okay, we have seen sponges. Okay, we have seen sponges. What happens with sponges is they have a lot of pores. They are sedentary animals. They are fixed to the floor of the seabed or the ocean. Generally, they are marine. So what happens is this: the fluid in terms of water goes in and it is expelled out as well. So there is a constant circulation from the environmental fluid. Basically, generally they are aquatic because they would need an environmental fluid to transport the things in and at the same time take them out. Okay? So environmental fluid is actually doing the circulation. Normally it's water. We know that the sponges and mammalians are basically aquatic. They can be either marine or they can be fresh water as well. Generally marine. Okay. So sponges, they have pores all over the body, and mammalians like Hydra, they have one opening for both inlet and outlet. Ostrea and Oscar, we have already studied these things in animal classification. So this is basically the environmental fluid which is involved. So here they do not have blood, they do not have cytoplasmic interference, they just have an environmental external fluid which is taking care of the circulation that is required. Okay. Now there is one type of classification. Here we are talking about the classification in terms of the fluid which is involved in transport. Here we are talking about the classification in terms of the cellular level. Okay. So the next thing is internal fluid circulation. So the blood vascular system. So the blood vascular system, blood transports gases and absorb materials. So what does the blood do? It transports gases and absorb materials. So this is called the lymphatic system. Okay. So one is basically lymphatic system wherein the primary fluid is lymph. Okay. Then we have hemolymph. It is generally seen in cockroaches, like insects like cockroaches. We will study that as well. And obviously we will have blood. Okay. So there is one called blood vascular system. The other one is lymphatic vascular system, and the third one is hemolymph vascular system. So these are different types of fluids, blood, lymph and hemolymph, which participate in the transport. So this is the classification as per the type of fluid which participates in that transport. Okay. Alright, so now we will come to types of vascular system. What types of vascular systems do we have? So one, we have open vascular system. Now this is again a classification. It is a classification on types of the vascular system we have. So what is basically vascular system? Vascular system is basically the system of transport of fluids. Just as we have xylem and phloem in case of plants, and we collectively call this as vascular system. So in case of animals, we have two types of system. One is called the open vascular system, in which the blood or the fluid comes out of the tissue and is dipped into the fluid or organs. So what happens here is we have the blood which is coming out. It is basically coming out into a part called the sinus. So the blood collects in the sinus, and in sinus we have different types of cells and organs which are dipped. So the sinus will have organs and tissues which are dipped. Okay, and this is basically the hemolymph part, and from here it goes out. So here it's like the tissues and organs or cells are taking a dip or bath in the blood. So there is direct exchange between the blood and the organs or tissues. So in this case, what is happening is the blood vascular system, this is called open vascular system. Here the blood or the fluid comes out of the tissue, comes out of the and is dipped into the tissue, comes out, and the tissue or the cells or the organs are dipped into the fluid. So there is a direct exchange. Okay. So this is called, and the exchange takes place directly between the blood and the tissues. So if you notice, there is a direct exchange that takes place between the blood and the tissues. Okay. Now we have the closed circulatory system as we have in human beings. Okay. Now human beings, the blood is transported by the arteries. It is carried through the capillaries to the tissues, and it is finally carried back to the heart by the veins. So here is the blood which is coming through the arteries. We will have a fine network and branching, which is basically known as the capillaries. The tissues are somewhere here. So here is how the exchange takes place. The blood is not directly interacting or coming out, or the tissues and organs are not touching the blood. All the blood does is the gases, the capillaries are so thin that we have seen that due to partial pressure of oxygen difference, it diffuses out into the cells, and finally this comes into the carbon dioxide particle coming into the blood, and this blood again goes into the veins. So in one system we have the organs and the cells or the tissues dipped in actual blood, and directly the exchange takes place, and that is called an open circulatory system, generally seen in insects. And we have a closed circulatory system in which the organs are not dipped into the blood but separated by a very fine membrane, as in case of capillaries, wherein the same exchange takes place. So blood capillaries or arteries or veins, they are basically known as the blood vessels, and these blood vessels are basically passing through the cells and tissues, and exchange is taking place. But there is no direct interaction between the blood and these cells or tissues. Okay, so this was just an outline of what we are going to study throughout the chapter. We will have more coming in.
Alright, so we are going to now cover what are the different types of organisms and how the respiration basically takes place. Just one moment here. I think it was a little down. Okay, let me adjust it here. Okay, so when we talk about smaller organisms, okay, like Protista or maybe Amoeba, Paramecium, Platyhelminthes, okay, if we see, they have a relatively large surface area to volume ratio because in them the circulatory system is not present. So cytoplasmic fluid or cytoplasm is the one which is taking part in the transport of various types of respiratory gases, nutrients, and so on and so forth. So smaller organisms like Protista, which are basically Amoeba, Paramecium, Platyhelminthes, they have a relatively large surface area to volume in ratio. Okay, so the surface area is large as compared to the volume that they occupy. So substances needed are directly exchanged. Whatever substances are needed, they are directly exchanged. So there is a direct exchange between an organism and its surroundings. So no specific transport system is required here. They would not require a specific transport system. So the entire transport happens by either diffusion or cytoplasmic streaming. So basically the things that are required from the environment come into the cell by diffusion or cytoplasmic streaming. So there is a cytoplasmic streaming that happens. Okay. Now we'll talk about complex multicellular organisms. Now these complex multicellular organisms are basically specialized circulatory system. They have a specialized circulatory system just as us because our energy requirements are pretty much high. We have various types of complex internal and external activities for which we will need a very high supply of energy, and the distribution of this energy has to be done to all the body tissues. Okay, and also there is a large distance between the surface wherein the actual exchange or manufacturing or absorption is taking place. So there is a surface wherein the respiratory gases are absorbed, that is the lungs, and there is a surface in which the nutrients are absorbed, that is the intestines or the digestive system. And all the cells and tissues of the body are pretty much far away from these two places. So hence we would need a particular transport system to have these things transported. The absorbed nutrients from food through the digestive system has to be transported to each and every cell in the body, and also the absorbed respiratory gases have to be transported. Okay, so we have a circulatory system has three basic So complex multicellular organisms have specialized circulatory systems. Okay, so by the medium of these systems, the nutrients, the gases, hormones, etc. are transferred. We will see what are the basic things that are basically transported by circulatory system. The primary things are the gases and the nutrients which are absorbed. Okay, now any circulatory system must have these three features. One, transport or circulatory fluid. So we must have a fluid which will carry these things. So it must have a transport or a circulatory fluid which will carry these things. Okay, now in small organisms like amoeba and paramecium, the entire body structure is basically unicellular, so there is hardly any distance. So we would not need the second thing, that is a pumping mechanism. This would be required in higher animals like us, dogs, cats and all and so on and so forth. We will all need a heart, because the site where nutrients are absorbed and the site where exchange of gases takes place are pretty much far away from the site of the cells and tissues in different parts of the body. So we would need a basically pumping mechanism to ensure that this distance is covered. So we will need a pumping mechanism which is basically the heart. So transport or circulatory fluid, and then we will need a heart. Then we will need a system of tubes. So the blood vessels have to be there, like the arteries, the veins, the capillaries and so on and so forth. So these are the three essential constituents or features of a circulatory system. We have a circulatory fluid, transport or circulatory fluid which is basically the blood, a pumping mechanism which is basically the heart, and a system of tubes through which the blood will flow. So these are basically the blood vessels. So that's the three essential constituents. Now, what are the functions of a circulatory system? So if we look at the functions of a circulatory system, first is transport of nutrients, soluble food component from area of absorption to different parts. So the soluble food component from area of absorption to the different, so that is the first thing, because this food has to burn, it will act as a fuel by the oxidation. So we know that the oxidation of food happens and energy is produced by the process of respiration. So this food which is absorbed in the intestines is transferred to various parts of the body, and the purposes in various parts are different. Some parts it's storage, some parts it's assimilation, and some parts it's synthesis of new products or new things that are synthesized. So this food has to be transported, which is absorbed basically. So absorbed food from intestines is transported to various parts of the body by means of circulation. Okay, now transport of waste products. So all the excretory products to organs of excretion. Now obviously during metabolic activities all cells will generate waste products, and these waste products of excretion are carried all the way to kidneys for filtration from the blood. So transport of waste products is one thing. Then we have uniform distribution of heat. So circulatory fluid picks up heat from one part and dissipates it on this surface for uniform distribution. So circulatory system basically will pick up heat from one part of the body and it will slowly diversify and distribute the heat to the other parts of the body. So this is called uniform distribution of heat. Transport of water, inorganic ions and various chemicals. So there is transport of water, inorganic ions and various chemicals. This is also I am so sorry. Transport of water, inorganic ions and various chemicals. This is also uniformly distributed by the circulatory fluid. Then we have defense against diseases. So in our blood there are a lot of phagocytes, the WBCs and all. So these phagocytes basically engulf and digest any type of foreign materials like bacteria and other things. Okay, bacteria and microorganisms which can basically prove detrimental to our health. So that is defense against diseases. Transport of respiratory gases. So we know that oxygen and carbon dioxide are the primary things which need to be transported. Carbon dioxide as a waste material and oxygen as something which is required by the cells. So this is all. So in some circulatory fluids there are respiratory pigments. Okay, so in some animals there are respiratory pigments present in the plasma. For example, in snails we have so. Rest we all know that generally the transport happens by the RBCs. Okay, in human beings it is the RBCs which are taking part, the RBCs in the blood which are taking part in the transport of gases. Okay, in insects we have the tracheal system of respiration. Okay, so different ways are there for the transport of respiratory gases. Now transport of intermediate metabolites. Now what do we mean by intermediate metabolites? All the byproducts or intermediate products from the tissues where they are produced to the organs where they can be metabolized. For example, during heavy exercise we produce lactic acid. This lactic acid is carried all the way up to the liver for oxidation. Okay, so that is basically also done by blood. So byproducts or intermediate products which are formed have to be carried from the site of production to the organs where they will be again metabolized. Okay, then we have transport of hormones, very important. Okay, hormones are basically the ones which are generating chemical control in our body. So at different ages we have different hormones that are produced, and these hormones need to reach the target organs. We know that in our case most of the hormones are produced by ductless endocrine glands. So we have ductless endocrine glands and they are transported by the circulatory fluid. The circulatory fluid carries them all the way to the target organs. So these are the target organs. There are many target organs, and the circulatory fluid, that is blood itself, carries all the way up to it. Okay. Okay, so now we will look into the canal systems. Okay, we have different types of circulatory systems in animals. So the first one is basically water circulatory system. So what happens in the water circulatory system? We have environmental fluid, and it generally is seen basically in sponges and hydra and all. Okay, so here the environmental fluid takes part in the transport. So there is no special fluid from the body's end, let's say cytoplasm or even the blood. Okay, just the environmental fluid. So these are generally seen in aquatic marine organisms. Okay, so what happens is, so let's say the first category in the water circulatory system would be the canal system. So how does the body look? Let's say this is basically a sponge. Okay, so this is basically a sponge. It will have a lot of ostial openings. These are known as ostias, and there is flagella out here. These are basically known as collar cells. So the collar cells are like this. The collar cells are like this. There are a lot of openings, that is ostia, through which the water enters. Now the water that enters here carries along with it food plus oxygen. So this water enters here and it is basically driven by flagellas. So these flagellas are basically driving the water up. These flagellas are basically driving the water up, and the water basically has entered through the ostia, through the different canals. There is this cavity known as spongiocele, the osculum. Finally the water moves out into the osculum. Water enters through the different openings called ostia. It is basically a flagellated movement that happens, and water goes out through the osculum. Okay, so spongiocele is basically a cylinder which is enclosing cavity, large opening. So this is basically a cylinder which is enclosing a cavity and a large opening. This is basically known as, and finally the water goes out through osculum. So there is a current of water which comes in through the ostia. The current of water comes in through the ostia, and hence these are known as inhalant siphons. Okay, inhalant siphons means that they are taking in the water. Okay, and the beating of the flagella, basically the flagella keeps on pushing the water up. So while going up, it is distributing the food and oxygen which is carrying with it, and collecting the waste material as well. So this is a simultaneous process. Distribution of oxygen and food happens through water, and while going up it is collecting all the waste that is discharged. Okay, so food is taken in and waste discharged as water passes through the canals. So the waste is collected by water as it passes through the canals. Finally the water leaves through the exhalant siphon, and that is basically the osculum. So in case of sponges and hydra, there is a difference. In case of sponges, there are ostial openings, and the water finally leaves out through the osculum. Again, flagellated movement encourages the water to go up. So there is one osculum opening. There is one opening known as osculum, and there are miniature pores which are known as ostias. So the water enters through the ostia. It brings along with it the oxygen and the food and the nutrients. and the nourishment, and it goes up, it is facilitated upwards, and it finally leaves the osculum. Whereas if you see in Hydra, there is just one opening and one opening for the water to come in, and the same opening for the water to leave out. And here we have the spongiocele as the cavity in which the entire thing takes place. Here we have this colon. This is basically seen in colentroids, okay, and this is basically the colentric cavity. So colentron as water filled cavity. So colentrons have this is basically the colentron as water filled cavity, and here we had sponges wherein the spongiocele was the cavity in which the transfer of water and nutrients takes place. The spongiocele was the cavity here, and we have colentron as the cavity here. This is generally seen in colentrates possess a single large cavity called colentron, and this is basically lined by endodermal cells. Okay, the single opening through which water enters or leaves. So the entire amount of water basically enters and leaves through a single opening. So from the mouth, the water enters and it carries along with it food and oxygen. It collects the waste and carbon dioxide and it leaves out through the mouth itself. So there is a single opening for the entry and exit. So water carrying oxygen and food passes through the mouth, circulates through the colentron. After collecting waste and carbon dioxide, water leaves the colentron to the same opening. So this is basically the entire movement is encouraged by flagellated cells, and this goes into the endoderm, and this water basically moves out. So we have colentron, we have ectoderm, and we have endoderm as well. So we have ectoderm here, we have endoderm here, and we have colentron. Clear? So this is how the entire thing takes place. So this type of circulatory system is basically known as canal system, in which there is no internal fluid which is taking part. There is an external or environmental fluid called water which is taking part. In sponges we have the water entering to the different pores known as ostia and moving out through one single pore that is known as osculum. The entire exchange takes place in the spongiocele cavity. And in Hydra or colentrates, what happens is the water enters through the same pore. It enters the colentrial cavity, and after the collection of waste and dispersion of food and oxygen, it moves out through the same opening. So the entry and exit happens through the same opening. So this is how the canal system takes place, or the canal system of exchange takes place in these two lower organisms. Okay, so we have here arteries. Now we will talk about the human circulatory system. So in the human circulatory system, the first thing that we are going to talk about is blood vessels. Okay, so blood vessels basically we all know are of three types in humans. One we have arteries, the other one we have veins, and the third one we have capillaries primarily. Okay, there are more, but we will primarily discuss these three. So arteries and veins are basically three layered. Okay, so arteries and veins are basically three layered, and the outermost part is known as tunica externa. Okay, and this is basically also known as tunica adventitia. So the outermost part is known as the tunica externa or the tunica adventitia, and we will find it both in arteries as well as in veins. Okay, it is a fibrous tissue, and it basically is made up of collagen fibers. So it's a fibrous tissue. The basic function is to pump or provide strength to the blood vessels. This is made up of collagen fibers, and this is primarily elastic. Okay, now one thing that is there about tunica externa is that it is supplied with nerves. Nerves means that sympathetic nerves basically control the diameter of the tunica externa. Okay, so they will control the diameter as and when the requirement of the blood, when it goes in or out. So as per the organ, there will be a requirement of the blood, and hence the diameter can be controlled. Also it is supplied with vasa vasorums. Now what are vasa vasorums? See, blood vessels are carrying blood to different organs. Why? Because all organs or tissues or cells would need a certain amount of energy and oxygen. So they are supplying these things to these cells, tissues and organs. But at the same time, blood vessels will have a requirement of their own. So who will supply blood to blood vessels? So this is called vasa vasorums. So these vasa vasorums are actually supplying blood to blood vessels. Okay. Okay, now we have the second layer, which is known as tunica media. So this tunica media is basically muscular layer and is made up of smooth muscles. Okay, this is basically muscular layer and is made up of smooth muscles. Then we have the innermost layer, which is known as tunica interna, and tunica interna is having an outer layer which is elastic and the inner layer which is made up of endothelium. Endothelium basically is simple squamous epithelium. So we have three layers: tunica externa, tunica media and tunica interna in both arteries and veins. Okay, capillaries are a single layer, so we'll talk about them later, but in these we have three layers: tunica externa, media and interna. So these are basically made up of elastic layers, the interna part, and hence it is yellow elastin. Okay, so elastin fibers are there. So these arteries, if you see, they are generally thick walled and they branch out into capillaries and arterioles. So arteries first branch out into arterioles. See, this is basically an artery. It will branch out into an arteriole, and then an arteriole will basically branch out into the capillary. Okay, and finally they will converge into veins, and this is how this is basically a venule, and a lot of venules will actually merge into a vein. So just as artery branches out into arteriole, veins has its branches as venules. Okay, and this basically is the capillary. So walls of the arteries are generally thick and elastic because they have to accommodate the high pressure that is generated from the heart. The heart is continuously pumping blood, so they have to basically accommodate to this, as to withstand the high pressure of blood coming from the heart. So they have to withstand the high pressure of blood coming from the heart. Because of their elasticity, they can stretch and expand. So it is because of this elasticity that they can stretch and expand. So arteries do what? They carry blood away from the heart. In fact, all the blood vessels which carry blood away from the heart are known as arteries, irrespective of whether they are carrying oxygenated blood or deoxygenated blood. For example, the artery which carries oxygenated blood or rather deoxygenated blood from the heart to the lungs is known as pulmonary artery, whereas arteries generally carry oxygenated blood. So the confusion with students is that they get confused whether it is oxygenated or deoxygenated. The simple way to actually name a particular blood vessel as artery or vein is whether it is carrying blood away from the heart or whether it is carrying blood to the heart. So we have artery, this arteriole, and then we have capillaries. So arteries basically carry blood away from the heart. Arterioles, what are these arterioles? Only have smooth muscle fibers. They have got smooth muscle fibers in their middle layer. So they have got smooth muscle fibers in the middle layer. The inner vertebrate by sympathetic nervous system. Again, innervated by sympathetic nervous system. So smooth muscle fibers, they are innervated by sympathetic nervous system. On stimulation, they contract and relax of these muscles. The contraction and relaxation happens of these muscles, and they can basically contract the diameter or expand the diameter of the blood flow. So through the organs through which blood is flowing, they can either contract or expand. So this is how the arteries basically will work. So they will have a lot of elasticity in them. Okay, so we were basically going through the capillaries. So these capillaries are basically numerous and the smallest of all blood vessels. They are the smallest of all blood vessels. We have seen that the arteries basically branch out into the arterioles, and these arterioles basically branch out into the capillaries. So the capillaries happen to be the smallest of all blood vessels and they have the minimum diameter. The diameter is basically 7 to 10 millimeter. Okay, extremely thin walled. They are extremely thin walled. That is a layer of endothelium. There is just a layer of endothelium, extremely thin walled. These endothelium are extremely permeable. So the endothelium cells are extremely permeable and allows diffusion of dissolved substances in and out of capillaries. So very permeable, and they have to be permeable because as we see in a closed circulatory system, there is no direct interaction between the blood and the tissues. The blood flows through the capillaries, and the diffusion of oxygen from the capillaries to the tissues in the cells and collection of waste materials from the tissues in the cells to the blood happens by just pure diffusion. Okay, so obviously if diffusion has to happen, then the capillary walls which are in touch with the tissues and cells have to be extremely permeable as well as thin. so that a smooth exchange can happen. So they are made up of endothelium, which are extremely permeable and allows diffusion of dissolved substances in and out of capillaries. So this basically will allow diffusion of dissolved substances in and out of capillaries. So these are the only thing that they won't allow is macromolecules and plasma proteins. So macromolecules and plasma proteins are the ones which the endothelium cells of capillaries won't allow. Okay, so capillaries are a very branched network. Okay, and as and when they the network size increases, they become thinner and more permeable. They will not allow macromolecules and plasma proteins to pass. However, they will allow most of the gases and other things to pass. Very permeable, very smooth diffusion is allowed through their membrane, and very thin as well. Okay, now we have got venules. Just as we saw, arteries branch out into arterioles, and the same way veins branch out into the venules. So these venules are what? After the exchange of materials in tissues. So after oxygen, let's say, has been given, and after the nutrients have been exchanged, what happens is the tissues and organs, so this blood basically goes into the capillaries. Capillaries join together to form the venules. So these capillaries basically will join together to form the venules. Venules, the pressure is very less as compared to arteries, because now they don't have to flow through tissues, they don't have to take care of diffusion and all. That thing has happened, they just have to take the blood and pour it into the heart. So this is basically the deoxygenated or the venous blood, which is carried all the way up to the heart, so that it can be accordingly pumped by the heart through the pulmonary artery to the different lungs for exchange of gases. So they collect the blood and pass it on to the veins, and hence they are known as venules. So like arteries, veins also have 3 layers of tissues. So they will have 3 layers of tissues. Veins have thinner walls than arteries. So veins basically will have thinner walls than arteries, less of muscle and elastic tissue in the middle layer. So they have less of muscle and they have less of elastic tissues in the middle layer. The lumen of the veins is greater than the lumen of the arteries. So the lumen of the veins will always be greater than the lumen of the arteries. So let's say this is basically the lumen, and here the walls are closed. Here there is a lumen and the walls are open. So what happens is we have semilunar walls. These are semilunar walls, they are like moon shaped. Okay, so when, see, in veins we know that the pressure, in arteries the pressure is high, so the flow of blood will be unidirectional. Arteries won't generally need walls because the pressure is high. The atrial pressure is definitely very high because it is flowing through, but in veins the pressure becomes very low. Okay, so there is a high chance. So let's say when the blood is flowing from the bottom of my foot all the way up to the heart. Okay, so obviously since the pressure is low, the blood is rising up against gravity. So there is a high chance that this blood will backflow because the pressure is less, and if the pressure is less, there is a high chance and high probability that this blood will backflow. In order to avoid this, the moment the blood crosses this, these semilunar walls close. So there is a certain bulge that develops. Into the veins. So this closing of the walls prevents the black flow of blood. Okay, so the walls close and there is certain bulging out that happens. The walls open, the deoxygenated blood moves up and immediately they close, so that the black flow is avoided. Okay, now there are certain muscles known as sphincter muscles. We have seen that sphincter muscles basically encourage the flow of substances, whether they are present in the alimentary canal or in the blood vessels. They are present at the junction of capillaries and arterioles. So if we see arterioles and capillaries, these sphincter muscles are present at their junction. They contract and relax, which means that they will either increase or decrease the blood flow through the capillaries. So they will increase the blood flow or decrease it through the capillaries. Okay, so these are certain functions of blood vessels.